The first oath-forged link struck the key like a severed bell. Saltglass Harbor went silent around the sound. Nadine Frost stood knee-deep in black tidewater beneath the public gate while royal cutters held the chain taut across the stone channel. Each link was wider than her wrist, green-black with age, and threaded with pale mineral veins that glowed whenever a fire tide pressed against the outer reefs. Dragon King Corren Maddox raised the severing blade again. "Stop," Nadine said. She did not shout. She had spent 18 years giving orders through storms, and the harbor knew the difference between panic and warning. On the high quay, Harbor Chancellor Imogen Strake watched beneath a silver oilskin cloak. Tax collectors, royal dockmasters, and merchants crowded behind her. "The public chain has admitted contraband vessels 3 times this season," Imogen said. "Its keeper has either lost control of the gate or chosen not to use it." Nadine looked toward the eastern moorings. Refugee boats lay in 2 crowded rows, patched sails lowered, children wrapped in fishing nets for warmth. The public mooring demanded no toll during emergency tides. Imogen's royal docks charged by mast, cargo weight, and number of breathing souls. The vessels carried grain, lamp oil, and fever medicine, Nadine said. Every hold was opened under witness. 1 hold carried untaxed silver, 1 box beneath a dead woman's bedding. Its seal belonged to a royal revenue officer. Corren lowered the blade slightly. 7 winters ago, he had stood beside Nadine in this water, with both hands on the lowest anchor. Blood had run from his palms while they held the chain against a tide bright enough to smoke wet rope. Now black dragon-scale armor covered his hands. "The harbor inquiry found repeated failures in your custody," he said. "The inquiry never opened the chain ledger. It found missing entries. It found pages removed after they left my station." Imogen gestured, and a clerk lifted a blue-sealed ledger. "The keeper's record shows an unregistered opening at second bell." Nadine recognized the page. Her signature stood beneath a line she had never written. That ink was added after the storm. "Convenient," Imogen said. Nadine pointed toward the horizon. Red light trembled beneath the storm-dark sea. "The outer reefs are drawing heat. A fire tide will enter before nightfall. Cut the public chain, and the free moorings lose their safety line." "The royal docks are reinforced," Imogen replied. "For deep-keel tax barges, not low refugee boats." Corren looked toward the eastern moorings. For one breath, the man who had worked beside Nadine during the flood seemed to return. Then Imogen said, "Every vessel can be moved under royal tariff." The waiting captains stiffened. Most refugee families could not pay even 1 night's berth. Nadine faced Corren. "You are not closing a damaged gate. You are destroying the only harbor poor enough people are still allowed to enter. The chain will be removed pending royal inspection. Inspection happens in place. Oath metal changes resonance when moved. That claim is not recognized in Crown law. It was recognized when your life depended on it." Corren's gaze dropped to her hands. A pale saltfire scar crossed his left palm beneath his gauntlet. Nadine had wrapped that hand after the oath metal accepted his blood during the flood. He closed his fist. "Stand clear." Nadine did not move. Everyone in Saltglass Harbor knew what had happened to her husband, Darren Frost. During the worst fire tide in a generation, he remained at the public gate. The official record said he failed to close it, allowing the surge that drowned him. The record omitted the refugee fleet still passing through behind him. Imogen had called his death negligence. Corren had signed the finding. 1 guard entered the water. Nadine stepped aside before he touched her. "I will not make you drag me from a chain I maintained while your offices sold safety by the berth." Corren raised the blade. He cut before the chain was inspected in place, before the fire tide reached the reefs, before the keeper who had saved his life was allowed to open her ledger. The 2nd link broke, then the 3rd. With each strike, the oath-forged chain sagged deeper into the channel. Its pale veins flickered once and went dark. Dock workers lowered their heads. Refugee captains began cutting mooring ropes, though the only open berths waited behind Imogen's toll gates. Nadine climbed onto the quay. "Launch every public rescue boat," she told the chain crew. "The public station is suspended with the chain," Imogen said. "The boats belong to anyone the tide is about to kill." Nadine's crew moved. Corren could have stopped them. Instead, he watched her send 3 boats toward the eastern moorings, Order children and the sick aboard first, and assign dock workers to tow the smallest vessels behind the Saltglass breakwater. She did not plead for her position. She counted hulls, measured wind, and moved people before the sea could make their poverty fatal. Only when the final rescue boat cleared the gate did she return to the severed chain. Royal cranes lifted the links onto 3 tax barges. Imogen ordered them carried beneath her private dock. The first hot rain began to fall. It hissed on stone. Far beyond the harbor mouth, something enormous moved beneath the red-lit water. Long backs broke the surface, plated in pearl-gray scales and streaming blue fire from their gills. Tide dragons rose one by one along the outer reef. They did not attack. They followed the mineral resonance of the severed chain. Every dragon turned toward Imogen's dock. The tax barges lurched against their anchors. Sailors shouted as black ropes snapped. One barge swung broadside. Another moved backward through the harbor, dragged by a force beneath the water. The tide dragons had taken the hanging chain links gently between their teeth. They pulled all 3 royal barges away from the private docks and across the public channel. Not toward Nadine, not toward the crown, toward the submerged foundations beneath Imogen Strake's toll house, where the oath metal had last been weakened. Nadine watched the barges turn. "The dragons are not naming a traitor," she said. "They are following what was done to the chain. They could not know who filed metal in the dark. They only followed the wound left in oath mineral." Beneath Imogen's dock, a hidden section of the safety line tore free from the pilings. Its links had been filed almost through. Corren ordered every crane halted before the hidden links could be dragged farther from the toll house pilings. The dragons had not cleared Nadine. They had only dragged the chain back to the place it had been wounded. Tide dragons circled the 3 tax barges in the storm-dark channel, their pearl-gray backs breaking through water lit red by the approaching fire tide. They held the severed links without crushing them, following the mineral wound beneath Imogen Strake's dock. Imogen raised her voice above the hot rain. "Dragon movement is not legal testimony. Those creatures follow salt, heat, blood, and old metal. They cannot distinguish sabotage from repair." "No," Nadine said. "Oath metal does not remember greed. It remembers where it was weakened." Corren looked from the filed links beneath the toll house to the public gate he had left without its safety line. "Stop all removal," he ordered. "No link is cut, filed, shifted, or cleaned." He had stopped the cutting. He had not returned the gate. The eastern refugee moorings pitched beneath the first pressure wave. Without the chain, small hulls struck one another hard enough to split rails. Nadine turned toward the rescue station. "I need every floating anchor, 6 salt glass screens, and the low-keel tow crews." "Your gate authority remains suspended," Imogen said. "Then suspend me after the children are behind a barrier." Corren ordered the rescue stores opened, and the remaining boats placed under emergency protection. Royal dock tariffs were suspended for refugee vessels until the fire tide passed. "Nadine emet hiskaze. Do not call me witness while the public mooring remains under tariff threat." "The suspension stands until the inquiry establishes safe access," he said. "That is permission that expires when your clerks choose." He granted her temporary chain witness standing for the severed links, hidden section, and harbor ledgers. Her gate authority remained suspended. "A king can stop a blade and still leave the harbor keeper under blame," Nadine said. "Under dock worker witnesses, royal recorders, and refugee captains." The hidden section was raised from beneath the toll house foundations. The tide dragons released each link once it rested on the public inspection cradle, then withdrew toward the outer reef. They had shown the location of damaged oath mineral. Nothing more. The links were coated in silt, shell growth, and black harbor grease. Imogen pointed to the rough edges. "Corrosion." The toll house foundations were approved by royal planners 20 years ago. Old reinforcement metal may have been trimmed during construction. "A filed link is not a confession," Nadine said. "It is a place to begin." She washed one link with hot brine, never touching the cut surface with iron. Parallel grooves appeared beneath the silt. Each was shallow, repeated, and angled downward from the private dock side. Natural corrosion left pits and branching fractures. These marks had shoulders. Someone had worked the metal across multiple visits, removing too little at once to trigger a full resonance alarm. Imogen examined the grooves. Emergency trimming can prevent a swollen link from locking against stone. From the waterside, Nadine said. Not through a private foundation sleeve. The sleeve may have shifted. Then its maintenance record will show when. The toll house permit authorized stone pilings around the public chain, but forbade direct contact with oath metal. No reinforcement sleeve appeared on the approved plan. Imogen remained composed. Plans changed during construction. The missing amendment may be in the Crown Archive. Nadine ordered the sleeve preserved. The chain ledger was brought from the Royal Inquiry Office. Nadine's station copy ended with numbered leaves. 3 numbers were missing from the volume now on the table. Corren asked who had carried it after seizure. The custody line showed the ledger leaving Nadine's station sealed under 2 guards. It passed through the revenue office before reaching Imogen's inquiry chamber. Nadine placed her receipt beside the custody sheet. My seal covered every numbered leaf when it left me. The first revenue receipt recorded the same count. The second, signed after night storage, recorded 3 fewer pages. Imogen said, "That implicates the revenue office, not my harbor authority. It narrows where the pages disappeared," Corren said. The missing leaves covered refugee entries, free mooring inspections, and the night the untaxed silver was found. The contraband box was carried in under guard. Its outer wrapping still bore the dead woman's family mark. Beneath the rope knot rested a royal revenue seal. The seal belonged to Senior Revenue Assessor Caldas Vey, who had inspected public exemptions during all 3 alleged contraband incidents. Imogen's expression tightened only slightly. A rogue officer may have abused refugee passage. That does not excuse missing entries under Nadine's custody route. The entries were present when the book reached his office, Nadine said. It does not prove he placed the silver. No. It proves the box passed beneath an officer's seal before it was used against my gate. Corren ordered Caldas Vey confined, his records sealed, and every harbor contraband seizure reopened. Caldas Vey's seal had touched the box. It had not yet shown who told the box where to be found. Outside, the fire tide struck the outer reefs. Blue-red flame ran across the water without consuming it. Rescue boats strained behind temporary saltglass screens. Nadine left the evidence table to direct anchor crews, placing Corren at the lowest submerged line. "You worked this chain once," she said. "Take the bottom anchor." The water reached his chest. "You needed my chain when your blood was in the water. You doubted it when poor people needed it." He closed both hands around the anchor rope. "You cut before you listened." Yes. It was admission, not repair. He had admitted the cut. He had not yet reopened the harbor it endangered. They held the barrier until the hottest pressure passed. Nadine returned, soaked to the waist, salt steaming from her cloak. A junior archivist waited beside an older flood file. The hidden section carried a faded resonance number beneath the filing marks. The same number appeared in the report from the flood 7 winters earlier, the night Nadine Frost drowned and Corren's blood entered the oath metal. Nadine opened the record. The official finding claimed the gate failed because Darren had left it unsecured. But a buried inspection note recorded something else. 7 winters ago, before Darren reached the gate, the chain beneath the future toll house foundation had already begun to lose resonance. The note did not clear Darren. It only proved the gate had been wounded before the record blamed the man who died holding it. Corren sealed the flood file before any clerk could return a page to the Crown Archive. "No summary," he said. "Bring every inspection note, gate map, survivor list, and construction permit connected to the 7th-year flood." The order widened Nadine's temporary standing to old resonance records and toll house permits. It did not restore her gate. Outside, the fire tide pressed red light across Saltglass Harbor. Refugee boats remained behind temporary saltglass screens, protected only until the emergency ended. Nadine's public chain still lay severed across inspection cradles. "A king can open an old file and still leave the living harbor closed," Nadine said. Corren accepted the words without defense. The flood record arrived in 3 salt-stiffened chests. The first contained weather reports and casualty rolls. The second held chain inspections. The third had been sealed after the official finding against Nadine Frost. Nadine opened that chest herself. The resonance note placed the first loss beneath the stone edge where the toll house would later stand. The weakening had begun before Darren reached the gate, and before the refugee fleet entered the inner channel. "My husband did not fail the chain," Nadine said. He reached it after someone else had already taught it to break. Imogen stood opposite the table. The note records reduced resonance, not deliberate damage. Fire tides distort oath mineral. Darren may still have failed to secure the gate afterward. The record may still judge what he did, Nadine replied. But it will no longer pretend the chain was whole when he touched it. Corren examined the old map. A dark mark showed where his blood had entered the chain during the flood. He remembered water at his throat. Darren braced at the gate wheel, and Nadine forcing his bleeding palm against the lowest link so the oath metal would recognize one more guardian. The blood mark lay beside the resonance number found beneath Imogen's dock. That section held me, he said. And later, under his seal, someone had built the wound around the place that saved him. It held because Darren kept the gate open long enough for the last refugee hull to clear your body, Nadine answered. Corren had signed the finding that called Darren negligent. He did not ask her to soften the truth. A harbor archivist spread the original toll house permit beside the flood map. Approved 1 year after Darren's death. It allowed 4 stone pilings and a dry inspection stair. It did not authorize a foundation sleeve around the public chain. A later construction sketch showed the sleeve. The paper carried no archive number. A toll house does not grow foundations in public water without someone's seal, Nadine said. Imogen studied the sketch. Construction changes are often approved on site. The amendment may have been lost during archive transfer. Lost from the Crown Archive and absent from the harbor copy? Possible. Convenient. Imogen remained composed. The toll house protected tax revenue and winter supply. Public chain failures had already demonstrated the need for reinforced private docks. You sold shelter by the breath and called the free gate unsafe. I kept grain moving when free moorings could not guarantee inspection. Corren ordered the construction archive opened by date. The amendment was missing from the numbered sequence. Page 42 authorized a key repair. Page 44 approved a warehouse roof. Page 43 had been cut from the binding. Nadine examined the remaining thread. Do not give me a revenue officer because you are afraid to open the permit, she said. I am opening both, Corren replied. Caldas Vey's seizure records arrived before night bell. The senior assessor had overseen all 3 contraband discoveries used against Nadine. Each occurred during a refugee exemption window and relied on a copied entry from the public chain ledger. The dates matched the 3 missing pages. The first listed a fever ship admitted without toll. The second recorded widowed fishermen carrying relief grain. The third covered the vessel where silver was found beneath a dead woman's bedding. Caldas had signed every inspection. His assistants had signed none. Imogen said, that supports an independent revenue scheme. Caldas may have exploited public exemptions to manufacture successful seizures. He belongs to the revenue office, not my chancellery. Yet every seizure strengthened your argument for closing the free mooring, Nadine said. Benefit is not instruction. No. It is where the records must keep looking. Caldas was brought into the chamber under guard. He denied planting silver. He admitted removing copied refugee entries for verification, but claimed the pages were transferred to a revenue vault. Which vault? Corren asked. Caldas named one beneath the Western Customs Tower. The register showed no deposit. Who ordered those inspections? Nadine asked. Rotating harbor risk notices. Signed by whom? The notices came sealed. With what mark? Caldas looked toward Imogen, then away. A Private harbor mark. Imogen's expression remained controlled. My office issues risk notices. That does not prove I selected false targets or altered Nadine's ledger. Caldas said nothing more. His silence did not clear him. It also did not make him the whole design. Corren ordered the revenue vault searched and the original notices recovered. He extended Nadine's witness standing to seizure custody and construction seals. Her gate authority remained suspended. The fire tide weakened near midnight. Imogen asked whether royal dock tariffs would resume at dawn. Nadine turned to Corren. I did not open the gate for contraband. I opened it because children cannot pay tolls with breath. The suspension remains until every displaced vessel has safe mooring, he said. That is emergency mercy, not a public right. Mercy ended when kings grew tired. Rights survived storms. He did not deny it. When he stepped nearer to examine the flood map, Nadine moved the document between them. Do not stand closer because the tide has begun returning what your inquiry buried. Corren stopped where she placed him. The final construction chest arrived after midnight. Inside lay the missing foundation order, folded behind an unrelated breakwater repair. It authorized the sleeve around the oath-forged chain and permitted private dock access to its maintenance face. Imogen's private harbor mark had been pressed into the lower corner. She said, "A mark proves office review, not authorship, motive, or execution." Nadine looked at the approval line above it. The order had not passed through an ordinary planner. It bore the royal seal used only during emergency authority after the 7th-year flood. Corren's old flood seal. The seal did not yet prove Corren had known what the sleeve would touch. It proved his emergency authority had been used to give the wound a crown. Before dawn, Corren ordered the emergency seal chest opened under 3 harbor witnesses. The iron box had not been unsealed since the last post-flood reconstruction permit was issued. Its custody book smelled of salt, lamp oil, and old sealing wax. Nadine stood across the table from him. "Your seal may have been used without your knowledge," she said. It still gave the wound a crown. Imone Strake folded her gloved hands. Emergency reconstruction required broad authority. Half the harbor was broken. Permits were approved in batches because waiting for individual review would have stopped grain, medicine, and winter fuel. Corren did not look away from the custody book. "A king's seal can be abused," Nadine said. "It can also be careless enough to become useful." The first entry showed the royal flood seal transferred from Corren's personal chamber to the post-flood reconstruction office for 11 days. Its keeper was Master Clerk Orwin Hale, now retired from Crown service. The log listed 47 permits approved during that period. Corren's signature authorized the batch. It did not name the foundation sleeve. "I approved emergency rebuilding authority," he said. "Not every engineering detail attached beneath it. Do not ask me to choose between your ignorance and your authority," Nadine replied. "Both left my husband blamed." He accepted the words without defense. Her gate authority remained suspended. The public chain still lay broken across the inspection cradles. Refugee vessels remained under temporary protection only because the inquiry had not ended, Imogen said. The batch approval was lawful. If an engineer added a reinforcement sleeve, that may have been ordinary field correction. "Ordinary corrections appear in a construction register," Nadine said. The reconstruction office records were brought from a dry vault beneath the palace quay. Most permits were grouped by district: warehouses, flood stairs, breakwaters, and public piers. The sleeve order did not appear among the public harbor repairs. It had been filed inside a private harbor expansion packet. The packet belonged to Strake Maritime Holdings, the commercial house Imogen controlled before becoming harbor chancellor. Imogen read the heading without visible alarm. "My family company supplied stone and labor after the flood. Private contractors often carried out public reconstruction." "Under what payment?" Nadine asked. "Crown reimbursement." "From whose revenue?" "Harbor tax reserves." "You used public money to build private access around the public chain, to reinforce a damaged harbor." Nadine opened the expansion map. The proposed private docks extended around the eastern toll basin. A narrow foundation sleeve wrapped the oath-forged chain where it passed beneath the future toll house. The sleeve allowed inspection from the private side but blocked access from Nadine's public chain station. The written justification appeared on the following page. "Protect royal dock revenue from repeated instability of the public chain." "You made public safety look unstable," Nadine said. "Then sold the stable version by the night." Imogen's expression hardened. The public chain had failed during a catastrophic flood. Expansion of the royal docks was a reasonable response. The chain was already losing resonance before Darren reached it. That was discovered years later. It was recorded that night, and not proven to be sabotage. "No," Nadine said, "but someone used an unresolved wound to move safety behind a toll gate." Corren ordered the original request separated from the reconstruction batch. A clerk examined the stitching. The sleeve sketch had been added after the batch cover was signed. Its thread was newer, and its page edges had not absorbed the same flood soot as the surrounding permits. "Who attached it?" Corren asked. The current archive could not say. Master Clerk Orwin Hale was summoned from a coastal monastery where retired officials copied navigation charts. He arrived after midday, stooped with age but clear-eyed. He remembered the reconstruction weeks. "Orders came faster than we could number them," he said. "The king approved categories. Harbor offices attached details beneath each category. Who delivered the private expansion packet? Nadine asked. A harbor chancellor's deputy. Imogen was not chancellor then, Corren said. No, she served as Royal Harbor Commissioner. Imogen nodded. I coordinated flood reconstruction. That was public record. Did you attach the sleeve sketch? Corren asked. I reviewed hundreds of repairs. I do not remember one foundation detail from 7 years ago. Orwin examined the private mark pressed into the sleeve request. This mark authorized office review, he said. It did not identify the person who assembled the packet. Imogen turned toward Nadine. The reconstruction office accepted it. The King's Batch Authority approved it. If the design later caused damage, that may be negligence shared across several offices. You cannot hide a private harbor inside a royal emergency and call the damage accidental, Nadine said. A bell rang from the eastern moorings. One of the temporary saltglass screens had cracked under the returning heat current. Nadine left the archive table before anyone could argue further. She ordered 2 rescue boats into the channel and moved 6 refugee hulls behind the stone breakwater. Corren followed, carrying a replacement anchor. Lowest position, Nadine told him. He entered the water where the current struck hardest. You can hold the anchor, she said. You have not restored the harbor. No. A harbor that sells safety has already chosen who may drown. The cracked screen was replaced before the next pressure wave. No hulls were lost. When Nadine returned, the hem of her coat steamed against the archive floor. Corren did not offer his cloak or step closer. He extended the emergency tariff suspension through the full inquiry and ordered no refugee vessel removed from public water. That keeps them safe today, Nadine said. It does. Mercy ended when kings grew tired. Rights survived storms. He gave no promise he had not yet earned the authority to make. The search of Caldesvey's revenue rooms produced the missing risk notices. All 3 had been copied from private harbor assessments and routed through his office before the contraband seizures. Caldas admitted receiving the notices. He denied writing them. Who supplied the target vessels? Nadine asked. The harbor expansion office. Under whose instruction? The papers carried marks, not names. Imogen said. Caldas could have used legitimate risk lists for his own fraud. Benefit is not instruction, Nadine said. Neither is a revenue seal the whole command. The final page of the private expansion packet had been folded beneath a drainage estimate. It was the original sleeve request. Imogen's private harbor mark stood beside the foundation sketch. Below it, in Caldesvey's hand, was a single instruction. Public gate failure must be demonstrable before tariff transfer. Corren ordered the private expansion packet sealed before Caldesvey could be questioned again. The instruction beneath the foundation sketch named a condition. It did not yet name the mind that created it. Imogen Strake remained beside the archive table. Demonstrable failure can mean documented failure, she said. No tariff transfer could lawfully occur without proof that the public gate was unsafe. Proof gathered after damage, Nadine replied. Or damage arranged until proof became easy? That is accusation, not evidence. No, it is the question your packet purchased room to ask. Corren ordered the handwriting, ink, and page custody examined separately. Caldas admitted the words were his, but denied composing them. I copied the line from a tariff memorandum, he said. Whose memorandum? Corren asked. It came through the harbor expansion office. Signed? Marked with the private harbor seal. Imogen's face did not change. My office issued many commercial transition notices. Copying one sentence does not prove I directed false seizures or damage to the chain. Nadine looked at Caldas. What did you believe demonstrable required? A pattern the Crown could defend. Failed inspections. Contraband discoveries. Delayed gate response. Did you manufacture that pattern? No. Did you remove pages? I removed copies for review. The originals vanished after your office received them. Caldas swallowed. I did not destroy them. His denial did not clear him. It only kept the inquiry from becoming convenient. Corren opened the tariff transfer ledgers next. 7 winters earlier, Private Dock Authority had expanded within 3 days of Darren's death. Royal toll collection shifted from the public gate to straight controlled berths under emergency order. The transfer was described as temporary. It had never been reversed. Each later allegation against Nadine increased the private harbor's share. Imogen said. The Crown required stable revenue after the flood. Refugee exemptions left inspection gaps and unpaid maintenance. You made the free harbor carry the poor, Nadine said. Then called their survival a financial defect. The docks cannot protect ships without funds. A harbor that protects only those who can purchase safety is not a harbor. It is a locked room beside water. Corren ordered every payment tied to the transfer preserved. The records showed Strake Maritime Holdings receiving maintenance fees, expansion compensation, and storm risk premiums from royal tax revenue. Profit did not prove sabotage, but every wound to the public chain made the private docks more necessary. A reconstruction payroll named the workers who installed the foundation sleeve. Only one remained in Saltglass Harbor. Master rigger Jessa Marrow arrived with a cane carved from mastwood and salt scars across both hands. She had been 38 during the flood and had supervised underwater stonework beneath the future toll house. Nadine placed the original permit and later sleeve sketch before her. Which plan did your crew receive? The second. Who delivered it? A commissioner's courier. Did the sleeve touch oath metal? It was not meant to. Did it? Jessa looked toward Imogen, then back to Nadine. On the third day, the inner bracket settled against the chain. What happened? The mineral light thinned. Corren leaned forward. Was it reported? To Reconstruction Command. By name? I signed the fault slip. The courier took it. Imogen said, a settled bracket can be corrected. Was it? We were ordered to pack the contact point with black seal grease and continue. By whom? The correction came back under emergency authority. Corren's flood seal. Again, the seal did not prove he had read the fault slip. It proved the office using his authority had chosen concealment over repair. Nadine asked for the slip. Jessa shook her head. It never returned to the crew file. Corren ordered the reconstruction fault archive opened. Before the clerks could leave, a harbor bell sounded from the eastern wall. 3 short strikes. A low-hull vessel had broken from its temporary anchor. Nadine. The fire tide had weakened, but the water still carried enough heat to blister exposed skin. A refugee boat crowded with families drifted toward the tax barge channel, where one severed chain link hung beneath the surface. 2 rescue boats to the stern, Nadine ordered. No hooks near the children. Corren reached for the nearest line. Lower anchor, she said. He entered without argument. The boat swung broadside. Nadine climbed onto its rail, cut a tangled tow rope, and shifted the families toward the inner side so their weight would help turn the hull. Corren held the submerged anchor until the rescue boats secured the stern. No one drowned. When he came ashore, blood ran from reopened saltfire scars beneath his gauntlets. Nadine did not touch him. You can bleed for the harbor, she said. You have not yet made it public again. He ordered the refugee moorings protected for the duration of the inquiry and forbade tariff collection from any displaced family. Temporary protection, not a permanent right. Back in the archive chamber, the fault records had been found behind storm damage accounts. Jessa's slip was there, folded beneath an unsigned correction order. It recorded direct pressure between the new sleeve and the oath-forged chain. Resonance loss followed within 1 bell. The correction order instructed workers to hide the contact beneath seal grease and classify the reading as flood residue. Imogen said, That language may belong to an engineer protecting his work. Then name the engineer, Nadine replied. The approval line carried no engineer's signature, only the emergency flood seal and the private harbor review mark. Corren opened Darren's full gate log. The official report said he ignored the closure order and left the public gate unsecured. The original bell sequence told a different chronology. Closure ordered at 9th bell. Outer refugee fleet entered at 9th bell in 12 strokes. Chain resonance failed at 9th bell in 14. Darren reached the gate at 9th bell in 16. He had arrived after the failure, not before it. Still, the record did not yet explain why he refused to release the gate wheel when the final warning sounded. Nadine turned the next page. A line had been crossed through so heavily that the parchment had nearly torn. Jessa held it toward the lamp while Nadine rubbed salt chalk across the back. The buried words rose through the fibers. 17 refugee hulls remained inside the crushed channel when Darren was ordered to close the gate. Corren ordered the 17 refugee hulls named before anyone resumed argument over Darren's failure. The old admission roll had been split across 3 ledgers: public mooring, fire tide shelter, and emergency ration issue. Nadine placed them side by side until the erased route became visible. 4 hulls had sunk in later winters. 7 captains were dead. 6 vessels still sailed the southern coast. "Summon every surviving captain and any crew who stood inside the crush channel," Corren said. "No harbor summary." Their own words. The order reopened witness testimony from the 7th-year flood. It did not restore Nadine's gate. Imogen Strake examined the bell sequence. 17 ships inside the channel explains delay. It does not prove Darren chose correctly. A gatekeeper may still be required to sacrifice trapped vessels to save the harbor. Nadine looked at her. "Say it plainly." "Poor ships were the acceptable loss. I said the keeper had to judge the greater danger. My husband did judge it. Your record condemned him before preserving what he saw." The first surviving witness arrived before midday. Captain Sarah Quill had been young enough during the flood to sleep beside the grain sacks, and old enough to remember the sound of hulls striking stone. Her vessel had carried 32 refugees from the Ash Coast. "Where were you when the closure bell rang?" Nadine asked. "Past the outer arch, not past the gate." "What happened when the chain failed?" "The current turned sideways. 3 boats jammed behind us. If the gate wheel released, the west leaf would have swung into the channel." Corren opened the engineering map. The public gate did not close like a door. It rotated 2 submerged leaves inward, while the oath-forged chain pulled pressure toward the Saltglass piers. Without full chain resonance, the west leaf would travel faster than the east. "What would it have struck?" he asked. "The refugee line," Nadine said. "The first leaf would crush the leading hulls. The second would trap the rest against the fire tide," Imogen said. "That is reconstruction," Sarah Quill answered before Nadine could. "I watched Nadine Frost hold the wheel against the turn." "Did he receive the closure order?" Corren asked. "Yes." "Did he refuse it?" "He shouted that the channel was not clear." "Did he open the gate farther?" "No. He held it where the ships could still pass." One witness did not clear a dead man. Corren ordered the account sealed, and the remaining testimony taken separately. The second survivor remembered Darren sending dock workers to cut loose an abandoned cargo raft. The third remembered Nadine counting hulls from the eastern pier. The fourth said royal officers had already withdrawn from the lower gate because the chain light was failing. Imogen remained composed. Memory after 7 years is vulnerable to grief, gratitude, and repetition. "So are official records written by offices protecting their permits," Nadine said. The original gate mechanism log was lifted from the engineering archive. Its pressure needle had scratched a narrow line across smoked copper during the flood. At 9th bell and 14 strokes, the chain lost resonance. 2 strokes later, Darren reached the wheel. At 9th bell and 17, the west leaf began to rotate, then stopped. Corren traced the flat mark. What force held it? Nadine studied the tension scale. More than one man's grip. The harbor riggers opened Darren's recovered equipment inventory. His belt knife, storm hook, and 1 wrist guard had been returned after the flood. His waist chain had not. Neither had the short mooring shackle every gatekeeper carried. Sarah Quill closed her eyes. He wrapped something around the wheel post. Nadine's face did not break. "What? I thought it was rope." "It shone when the fire tide reached us." Oath-forged harbor metal. Darren had carried a service length used to bind emergency anchors into the public chain. If he looped it through the gate wheel and around the post, he could hold the leaf open after his hands failed. Imogen said. Or he could have improperly altered the mechanism and caused the final collapse. "A possibility," Nadine said. "So we inspect the wheel housing." The old gate housing still stood beneath the public quay, sealed since the flood. Corren ordered it opened under dock worker, refugee, and Crown witnesses. He expanded Nadine's temporary standing to the mechanism inspection. Her gate authority remained suspended. The lower chamber smelled of salt, rust, and old fire. Nadine descended first. Corren followed where she directed him, carrying the lamp rather than giving orders. At the wheel post, black mineral scars formed 2 parallel bands. Nadine fitted a resonance compass against them. The needle pulled toward the recovered public chain. "Oath metal was locked here under full strain," she said. The lower band sat at Darren's waist height. The upper crossed the wheel lever. Corren looked at the distance between them. He chained himself to the mechanism. He made his body the missing anchor. A king could stand beside the proof and still leave the dead man's name under blame. Imogen touched nothing. The marks establish restraint. They do not establish necessity. Darren may have mistaken the risk. Nadine turned toward the Crush Channel map, then opened the refugee loss estimates prepared that night. The emergency planning chest contained 3 projected outcomes. Gate released immediately. 12 to 17 hulls crushed. Gate held until channel clear. Public mechanism likely lost. Keeper survival unlikely. Gate abandoned. Fire tide enters inner harbor. The selected recommendation had been gate release. The approving officer was not Darren. It was Harbor Commissioner Imogen Strake. You ordered him to close on 17 vessels, Nadine said. I ordered the harbor preserved under the best projections available. And when he chose lives over your tariff basin, you called the broken mechanism his failure. I signed no death finding. No. You supplied the choice that made one easy. Corren had signed the finding. He ordered the projections sealed and Darren's judgment reopened, but he did not clear the record before every remaining witness was heard. Outside, the temporary tariff suspension approached its legal end. Nadine faced him at the top of the flooded stair. You can reopen my husband's case, and still let the same families lose shelter at dawn. Corren extended free mooring protection through the inquiry, and ordered the public rescue crews funded from Crown revenue. Temporary. Still not a right. Then the final flood witness arrived, carrying a salt-stiffened strip of oath metal recovered from beneath a refugee hull 7 years ago. One end bore Darren's service mark. The other had been cut cleanly after the gate stopped moving. Corren placed the recovered strip beneath 2 witness lamps and ordered the gate shears brought from the lower quay. The metal had not torn under strain. Its edge was too straight. The grain compressed in a single direction. Someone had cut it after Darren stopped the west leaf from moving. Nadine fitted the strip against the black mineral bands on the wheel post. The service mark aligned with the lower scar. The opposite end matched the upper loop. He chained his waist to the post and his hands to the lever, she said. Imogen Strake remained beside the mechanism map. That establishes what he did. Not that it was the only lawful choice. No, Nadine answered. So we finished the sequence. The emergency tool register showed 1 pair of oath metal shears issued at 9th bell and 18 strokes. 4 strokes after the chain lost resonance. The bearer's name had been washed almost white by salt, but the witness mark remained. Senior dock rigger Hesse Ward had signed it. Hesse arrived from the western net yards before sunset. Age had bent 2 fingers on her right hand, but she recognized the strip before the recorders uncovered its mark. I cut that, she said. Corren ordered her statement taken without interruption. Hesse had reached the lower gate with 3 riggers, while 17 refugee hulls remained inside the crush channel. Darren had already wrapped the service chain through the wheel post. He told us not to touch it, she said. Not until Nadine called the last hull clear. Did the closure bell continue? Corren asked. 3 times. Did Darren hear it? He answered every time. He said the gate would close when the channel was empty. Imogen's expression remained controlled. He knowingly refused a royal closure order. He refused to drive the gate through people, Nadine said. Hesse continued. The final refugee hull cleared the west leaf at 9th bell and 23 strokes. Nadine sounded the inner clear signal from the eastern pier. Only then did Darren tell Hesse to cut the upper loop. Why cut it? Corren asked. The wheel had begun pulling him into the post. If we released the service chain from the anchor side, the gate would swing. We had to cut him free without taking the pressure off the leaf. Did you free him? The first cut opened the upper loop. Before we reached the lower, the fire tide struck the sleeve wall. The foundation sleeve had redirected the surge along the gate housing. The west leaf jerked outward. Darren was pulled beneath the water while the service chain still held his waist. Hesse cut the lower loop after he vanished. The recovered strip had come from that cut. One witness did not settle the dead man's record. But the mechanism marks, bell sequence, pressure chart, and service metal now carried the same order of events. Darren had not abandoned the gate. He had held it open until the last refugee vessel cleared. Corren sealed Hesse's statement beside the engineering evidence. He did not declare Darren cleared before the remaining custody records were opened. Nadine looked toward the severed public chain above them. My husband did not die failing a gate. He died holding it open long enough for people your ledgers did not price. Corren's face tightened, but he did not step closer. The gate still belonged to the inquiry, not to her. Imogen said, even if his final choice saved those ships, it does not prove the sleeve was designed to fail. A reconstruction error could have redirected the tide. Then why were the witness statements removed? Nadine asked. The old recovery packet contained 12 numbered testimony receipts. Only 9 statements remained. The missing 3 belonged to Hessa Ward, Captain Sarah Quill, and a refugee pilot who had mapped the Crush Channel. Their custody receipts showed all 3 transferred to the Revenue Damage Office 2 days after the flood. The receiving clerk was Caldus Vey. 7 years ago, he had not yet been senior assessor. He had been a junior claims examiner under the Harbor Commissioner's Emergency Board. Caldus was brought back under guard. I processed loss claims, he said. The Crown needed to determine which vessels caused damage. Where are the statements? Corren asked. They should have returned with the claims packet. They did not. I did not remove them. Nadine placed Hessa's receipt before him. You received the accounts that made Darren's choice intelligible. Then the official finding described only disobedience. I did not write the finding. No. You carried away the people who could contradict it. Imogen said, a junior clerk transferring testimony does not prove suppression. Refugee claims, gate losses, and tariff damages were handled together after the flood. Together under whose board? Nadine asked. The Emergency Harbor Commission, which you directed. I coordinated it under Corren's seal. Again, private administration sheltered inside royal authority. Corren opened the emergency board minutes. He had approved the commission's power to settle rebuilding and compensation. He had not attended its evidence sessions. A king's absence does not remove his seal from the room, Nadine said. No, he answered. It was accountability, not absolution. He ordered every claims packet from the 7th-year flood opened and expanded Nadine's temporary standing to recovery testimony and compensation records. Her gate authority remained suspended. Above the lower chamber, bells warned that the temporary moorings were reaching capacity. More Ash Coast families had arrived during the night. Drawn by the only free refuge still protected from tariffs, Imogen said the royal docks could receive them once standard fees resumed. Nadine turned on her. You made public safety look unstable. Then priced the shelter people had nowhere else to seek. The docks cannot expand without revenue. Then stop calling profit rescue. Corren extended the free mooring order through the public hearing he now required. Crown stores would feed the arrivals until their claims were reviewed. Temporary protection again. Nadine did not thank him for withholding harm a little longer. The claims archive was opened at midnight. Most packets contained hull valuations, lost cargo, and repair costs. The missing testimony had been placed inside a file labeled Public Gate Liability. At its front lay Darren's own fault petition, submitted 1 day before the flood. He had reported direct contact between the new foundation sleeve and the oath-forged chain. He requested that toll house construction stop until the public metal could be inspected in place. The petition bore Caldus Vey's receiving mark. Across the request, another hand had written, Inspection deferred until tariff transfer is complete. Beneath the sentence stood Imogen Strake's private harbor mark. Corren ordered Darren's fault petition sealed before the private harbor mark could be treated as a verdict. The petition proved that the sleeve contact had been reported before the flood. It did not yet prove who had chosen delay over repair. Imogen Strake stood beside the archive table. My office mark routed construction complaints, she said. It does not mean I read every petition or wrote the instruction across it. Nadine looked at the damp black impression. Then we opened the office that decided a warning belonged in a liability file instead of a repair queue. Corren summoned the surviving members of the post-flood tariff board and ordered the emergency commission minutes unsealed. He extended Nadine's temporary standing to tariff transfer records, board custody, and harbor risk memoranda. Her gate authority remained suspended. The public chain still lay broken across inspection cradles, while families slept beneath borrowed sailcloth at the eastern moorings. You can widen what I am allowed to witness, Nadine said. You have not returned what I was trusted to keep. No, Corren answered. He did not ask her to call restraint repair. The petition was examined under blue salt lamps. Caldas Vey's receiving mark had been pressed first. The sentence deferring inspection was written after the mark dried. Imogen's private harbor seal had been added while the writing ink was still soft enough to rise around its edge. The order and the mark had been placed within the same brief interval. Imogen remained composed. That establishes office handling, not my hand. A private mark used beside a fresh instruction narrows the room, Nadine said. Caldas was questioned again. He admitted placing Darren's petition in the emergency commission packet after being told that repairs affecting tariff transfer required board review. Who told you? Corren asked. Commission Secretary Vale Ormonde. Did you speak to Imogen? No. Did you alter Darren's request? No. Did you know inspection had been deferred? After the packet returned, Caldas had carried the warning into the board and later removed witness statements that contradicted the official finding. That made him part of the chain. It did not yet make him the person who designed it. Vale Ormonde was found in a coastal infirmary, nearly blind but mentally precise. He had kept the tariff board's speaking notes because official minutes reduced every disagreement to a final vote. He arrived wrapped in gray wool and asked to hear Darren's petition read aloud. I remember that request, he said. Who moved it out of maintenance review? Nadine asked. The chair ruled it material to the transfer. Who chaired the board? Harbor Commissioner Strake. Imogen did not flinch. A chair classifies documents. That is not suppression. Vale nodded. The board was told that repairs to the public chain should wait until the private docks could assume emergency traffic. Why? Corren asked. Because repairing the chain first might remove the legal basis for tariff transfer. Silence settled across the chamber. Imogen answered carefully. The harbor needed a funded alternative before another failure. Temporary transfer required demonstrable instability under Crown law. You needed the gate to remain unsafe long enough to justify selling safety elsewhere, Nadine said. I needed a harbor that could survive winter. You cannot call a wound evidence while refusing to let anyone close it. Corren opened the tariff statute used 7 years earlier. Private transfer required 2 findings: repeated public failure and insufficient repair capacity. The first finding came from the resonance loss beneath the new sleeve. The second came from Darren's inspection being deferred. The same board had created both conditions. A legal standard can be met honestly, Imogen said. It can also be arranged, Nadine replied. Vale's private speaking notes recorded the board discussion more fully than the official minutes. One commissioner argued that the chain should be inspected before transfer. Another warned that refugee exemptions would make private berths unprofitable unless the public gate remained restricted after the emergency. The speaker had been identified only by 2 initials matching Imogen Strake. Initials are not testimony, Imogen said. No, Nadine replied. They are another place to begin. A harbor alarm sounded before the next page could be read. The eastern moorings had exceeded the temporary anchor load. A refugee grain boat had begun dragging 3 smaller vessels toward the heat channel. Nadine left the archive chamber without waiting for royal permission. She launched 2 rescue skiffs, shifted the grain sacks toward the inner rail, and ordered the smallest families transferred first. Corren entered the lower anchor frame where she directed him and braced the line against the current. The damaged public chain could not protect them. Nadine used 3 severed oath links as temporary drag anchors, joining them with ordinary harbor cable. The links no longer formed a gate, but their mineral weight steadied the vessels long enough for the skiffs to tow them behind the breakwater. No hull was lost. When Nadine returned, water streamed from her coat onto the tariff minutes. Imogen looked toward the rescued boats. The private docks could have taken them safely. At a price they could not pay, Nadine said. The Crown cannot maintain infinite free refuge. Then stop making poverty the proof that public shelter failed. Corren ordered the eastern moorings reinforced from Crown stores and extended free access until the public hearing. Temporary again. Nadine did not thank him. Vale turned to the last speaking note from the night before the flood. It recorded a motion to delay Darren's inspection until after a planned public gate demonstration. What demonstration? Corren asked. Vale's hands tightened around the page. A controlled resonance test during the next fire tide warning. No such test appears in the maintenance ledger, Nadine said. It was not assigned to the public station. The attached requisition authorized access to the Toll House Foundation sleeve and removal of one resonance brace for observation. Caldas Vey had processed the requisition. Imogen's private harbor mark approved office review. The technician's name had been cut from the page, but a delivery receipt remained beneath it. The removed resonance brace had been sent not to the reconstruction office, but to Imogen Strake's private dock workshop. Royal Guards closed the private dock workshop before sunrise and placed wax across every sea door, furnace vent, and submerged loading hatch. No tool, brace, or ledger would leave without a dockworker witness. Nadine entered after the guards with 2 chainwrights and a refugee captain. Corren followed carrying the Crown inventory slate. Imogen Strake came last under escort, still wearing the silver oilskin cloak of her office. The missing resonance brace rested inside a Saltglass testing frame. It had not been discarded as damaged metal. It had been polished, measured, and fitted with adjustable clamps that could imitate pressure from the public gate. Imogen looked at the frame without surprise. Private workshops test failed harbor components. That is not evidence of sabotage. No, Nadine said. So we examine what the test was built to prove. The brace carried the same mineral number as the weakened chain beneath the toll house. Parallel extraction marks matched the tool pattern inside the foundation sleeve. Around its center, shallow abrasions formed 7 separate bands. Someone had stressed the metal repeatedly. The workshop ledger called them demonstrability trials. Each entry measured how much resonance could be removed before the public chain showed visible instability at the gate. You were not testing how to repair it, Nadine said. You were measuring how long the damage could remain hidden. Imogen's expression stayed controlled. Structural testing establishes failure thresholds. Engineers cannot reinforce a harbor without knowing them. Then where are the repair calculations? The ledger contained none. It recorded weakened light, delayed gate response, and projected tariff transfer after public failure. The final trial was dated the evening before the 7th-year flood. Corren sealed the book. Who supervised these trials? The workshop payroll named Master Chainwright Petra Voss. Petra had left Saltglass Harbor after the flood and now maintained storm bells on a northern island. A royal cutter brought her back before the next night tide. She entered the inquiry chamber with white hair braided beneath a leather cap and one clouded eye. When she saw the brace, she removed her gloves. I told them a live chain was not a workshop sample, she said. Who are they? Corren asked. The Harbor Expansion Board. Did Commissioner Strake speak to you personally? Once, Imogen said. Be precise. Petra nodded. You asked whether the public chain could lose enough resonance to fail inspection without breaking in calm water. That was a legitimate engineering question. You also asked whether fire tide pressure would make the failure visible. Imogen did not raise her voice, because the harbor needed to know how the weakened structure would behave. Nadine opened Darren's petition beside the test ledger. And when he requested an inspection before that tide, your board deferred it. Petra looked at the petition. I never saw this. Were you told the public station had been warned? I was told station knowledge would contaminate the demonstration. Corren's hand tightened around the inventory slate. Who used those words? The instruction came through Caldas Vey. Caldas was brought from the revenue hold. He admitted delivering the message but said it originated in the harbor risk office. Imogen answered before Nadine could. My office may have required an unannounced inspection. A keeper who prepares for a test can conceal routine failures. A test performed while refugee vessels occupied the channel, Nadine said. The fleet's arrival was not scheduled by my office. Caldas lowered his eyes. Nadine noticed. Whose schedule did you give the workshop? He said nothing. The seizure file contained a copied refugee exemption list. The same 17 hulls later trapped inside the crush channel appeared there, with expected arrival bells beside their names. Petra recognized the page. This was attached to the test order. Imogen's composure sharpened. Revenue offices track incoming vessels. That does not prove the board intended them to be endangered. No, Nadine said. It proves the demonstration was planned with their arrival in view. The workshop test order carried Imogen's private review mark and the Royal Emergency Batch seal. Neither alone proved who selected the live conditions. Together, they showed private harbor planning operating beneath Corren's authority. Nadine turned to him. Do not ask me to choose between your ignorance and your seal. The chain was wounded under both. I will not, he said. He did not apologize. He opened his left gauntlet. The saltfire scar across his palm had darkened since the chain was cut. When he placed his hand near the recovered brace, pale mineral light moved through the metal toward him. Petra stepped back. The chain still recognizes you. 7 years earlier, Corren's blood had entered the oath metal while he worked the lowest anchor beside Nadine. He had never placed that oath in the royal record. Imogen looked from the scar to the brace. A mineral response does not create law. No, Nadine said. But it proves he was not merely a king inspecting public property. He had been accepted as one of its guardians before he ordered it cut. Corren closed his hand. My oath status will enter the hearing. It was not absolution. It was the first time he placed his own concealed duty inside the same record that judged everyone else. He suspended Imogen from access to harbor archives, workshops, toll accounts, and route orders pending a public hearing. He froze tariff transfers and ordered the refugee moorings protected from crown funds. Nadine's gate authority remained suspended. You can restrain her office, she said. You have not restored mine. The chain is still structurally unsafe, because you cut it before inspection. Yes, a king could state the cause and still leave the consequence for others to carry. The workshop's lower cabinet contained sealed inquiry drafts prepared for royal review. Most described maintenance shortages and smuggling risks. One packet concerned Nadine. It recommended immediate removal of the oath-forged chain before any in-place inspection, citing contraband evidence, missing ledger pages, and repeated public failure. The document had been written 6 days before the silver box was discovered beneath the dead woman's bedding. Its evidence list was already complete. Corren ordered every draft in the lower cabinet dated, compared, and sealed before dawn. The packet against Nadine did not prove who placed the silver beneath a dead woman's bedding. It proved the accusation had been prepared before the evidence existed. At the public hearing, it stood beside the filed chain links. Missing ledger pages, Darren's fault petition, tariff board notes, demonstrability trials, refugee arrival schedule, foundation sleeve, and royal emergency seal that had allowed private harbor work to hide inside public authority. Saltglass Harbor filled the quay before first bell. Dock workers stood beside refugee captains, chainwrights, revenue clerks, coastal village elders, and families who had slept beneath borrowed sailcloth faced the raised inspection table. The tide dragons remained beyond the outer reef. No one called them to judgment. Nadine stood beside the severed public chain, Darren's service shackle near her hand. Imogen Strake faced the witnesses without chains. A draft is preparation, she said. Harbor offices prepare findings for multiple outcomes. The silver may still have been placed by Caldus Vey or another revenue officer exploiting public exemptions. Then the revenue custody will answer for the silver, Nadine said. The harbor record will answer for why your office was ready to use it. Caldus was brought forward. The Royal Mint had traced the untaxed silver to a confiscation store he supervised. A release slip showed the box leaving 2 nights before it appeared beneath the dead woman's bedding. Caldus had signed it. He admitted moving the silver, but said he believed it was part of an inspection test. Who gave the instruction? Corren asked. A harbor risk memorandum carrying the private review mark. Did Imogen speak to you? No. Did you know the woman was dead? Not until the search. His answers did not make him innocent. They also did not make him the whole design. The courier register placed the memorandum inside Imogen's office before Caldus received it. Her secretary testified that Imogen dictated risk priorities, but left vessel selection to the board. Imogen held that line. I did not order contraband planted. Caldus converted an inspection exercise into fraud. Nadine opened the pre-written packet. The vessel was named here 6 days before the box was found. Its missing ledger page was already listed. Its supposed evidence was already described. Imogen said nothing. The hearing did not require confession. The pattern had been built through metal, money, custody, timing, witness removal, and records prepared before the events they claimed to describe. Corren rose before judgment was read. My emergency seal approved a reconstruction batch I did not inspect closely enough. I later trusted the tariff inquiry built beneath that authority. Then I cut the public chain before allowing the keeper who understood it to open her ledger. He did not ask Nadine to soften the admission. I treated my ignorance as distance from the harm. It was not. The Crown judgment removed Imogen from Harbor Authority and placed Strake Maritime Holdings under restitution audit. Her private docks would remain open only under public supervision, while emergency tolls were reviewed. Caldas would face judgment for planting royal silver, removing ledger pages, and suppressing witness statements. Other officers would answer separately for their own acts. Then Nadine Frost's flood record was opened before the harbor. The corrected finding named the chains lost resonance before his arrival. The 17 refugee hulls inside the crush channel. His refusal to close the gate through them, and the service chain he wrapped around his body to hold the west leaf. The accusation of negligent failure was struck. The new record stated that Darren held the public gate open until the final refugee vessel cleared and died after the foundation sleeve redirected fire-tide force into the mechanism. Nadine placed his service shackle beside the amended page. "My husband was not perfect," she said. "He was responsible for a choice." The old record erased what that choice protected. Only after Darren's name was restored did Corren turn to Nadine's authority. The Crown Guard carried the harbor key, chain ledger seal, and gate command ring to the center of the key. Corren did not offer them as private mercy. Nadine Frost's suspension is ended. Her authority as keeper of the public chain and gate is restored before the sailors, dock workers, coastal villages, and refugee witnesses this harbor failed. Nadine accepted the key after the decree was signed. The public chain was not merely returned. It was rebuilt. Chainwrights removed the foundation sleeve. Public crews replaced every weakened link with oath-forged metal witnessed by coastal villages. Corren worked the lowest anchor under Nadine's orders, where fire-tide pressure struck hardest. The restored charter made the free moorings permanent public shelter. No Crown officer could impose emergency tariffs on refugee, rescue, or storm-displaced vessels. Future chain changes required approval from the keeper, dock workers, sailors, and coastal village representatives. Tide dragons entered the harbor code as resonance witnesses only. Their movement could identify wounded oath mineral. It could not name guilt, motive, or command. The toll house became a public inspection hall. For 9 days, Nadine directed rebuilding without discussing forgiveness. Corren carried tools, entered flooded foundations, and submitted his concealed saltfire oath scar to the Guardian Register. He did not use shared labor to claim closeness. On the 10th morning, the final link was lowered across the gate. Pale mineral light traveled from one pier to the other. Beyond the reef, the tide dragons turned beneath the water, then continued toward the open sea. The chain no longer called them back to a wound. Corren stood at the lowest anchor, soaked to the chest. "May I release the line?" he asked. Nadine checked the refugee channel, public moorings, and repaired gate. "Not yet." He held it. Only when the last low-keel family boat passed safely inside did she give the signal. Together, the crews set the chain. Later, Corren found Nadine fastening Darren's service shackle beneath the public ledger. "I cannot ask you to forget what my seal allowed," he said. "No." "Or what my hand cut." "No." He looked toward the restored free moorings. "May I keep working here when the Crown does not require it?" Nadine studied the man who had once stood beside her in floodwater, then above her with a blade. "Take the lowest anchor when the next fire tide comes." It was not forgiveness promised in advance. It was a place where trust might be rebuilt through labor, listening, and the public safety neither of them would again permit the Crown to sell.